Hi everyone, I'm Leanne and today I'm going to be giving you mini reviews of all of the books that I read in August. So August truly did slip away. It was a real blink and you miss it kind of month, but I'm really pleased that I read 10 books. 3 of them were books that I read for work, so I'm going to talk about those at the end. And I'm going to start with the fiction for grown-ups, and I read Enemies to Lovers by Laura Jane Williams. So this is a romance book and it is by far the best romance book that I've read all year. I've not read anything this good in quite a long time. This is about Flo and Jamie, and Flo is on a family holiday in Greece with her parents, her 2 brothers, and her brother's wife, but she's not aware that her older brother's best friend is also going to be going on holiday with them. And we find out that Flo and Jamie, the older brother's best friend, had an almost moment last Christmas. Flo is really angry about how kind of abruptly Jamie ended what could have been, and there is so much unresolved anger and tension between the pair of them. Flo is really annoyed that Jamie hasn't apologized for his behavior, and we follow them over the course of this holiday, trying to navigate the complications of that dynamic, having all of these unresolved feelings, no one in the wider group knowing about what has gone down between the 2 of them, but also this really kind of magnetic pull that they have towards one another that they're trying to fight and resist. Enemies to lovers isn't my favorite trope because I feel like so often they never really are enemies, or there's like a very small inconsequential like tension between the 2 of them, or like the enemies bit lasts for like only a few chapters, whereas I think this was perfectly done. And it felt like a really natural progression, them going from the tension to where they ultimately ends the novel. I thought the author did an amazing job of capturing the chemistry between the 2 of them. It is some of the best chemistry I have ever read in a romance book, and I've been trying to think about why this hit so well for me, and I don't know if it's necessarily like the quality was so superb or there were things about it that I just found quite refreshing. So I'd been reflecting on some of the romance books that I had read recently and I just didn't really feel like they were hitting. And actually the conclusion I've come to is that a lot of the romance books I was reading were very American, whereas this has a lot more of a kind of like British sense of humor in it. And I think the styles of flirting are quite different, and I resonated with this a lot more. The way they flirted, like the banter that they had, the tension, it just felt way more like something I could recognize as opposed to what I'd been reading in like American romance books more recently. I thought both of these characters were also really nuanced and well fleshed out, and I think you really understood their reasoning or motivations behind things. You really understood their shortcomings and their insecurities. I think they were both really well-rounded characters. I really loved this. I enjoyed the reading experience of it so much. This is, I think, the 4th Laura Jane Williams book that I have read. I have another one on my shelves that I'm so excited to read, considering what a good time I had with this one. But I know she has written a lot of other books that I haven't got round to picking up yet, so I feel like I have a lot of good stuff to look forward to. I also read Open Water by Caleb Izuma Nelson. This is a real slip of a novel. It is a really quick read, but the author has packed so much in here. This is about 2 young people who meet in a pub in southeast London, and there are a number of similarities in their life. So they are both Black British. They both won scholarships to private schools where they felt like they really struggled to fit in, and they are now both also artists. He's a photographer and she's a dancer. So they are trying to navigate their way around London in a city that simultaneously like celebrates and also shuns them, and we follow them falling in love. And despite it seeming like these 2 belong together, they really are plagued by a lot of fears and uncertainties and a world of violence. Not only is this an incredible love story between these 2 people, but the novel also explores so much around race and masculinity and being Black British, and specifically being a Black British male. It is short, but it is poetic and beautifully told, expertly told. I'm really intrigued to read more from this writer because I know they have another book. I think it's called Small Joys. I would really like to read that one as well. I also read Bonding by Marielle Franklin, and I think this is a really accomplished novel, but I don't think I enjoyed it. So this is about a group of people people in their 30s. And through their relationships and professional endeavors, this novel is a real kind of social commentary around kind of big tech and pharmaceuticals, but also being a millennial navigating London and navigating also like digital spaces, the role of social media and dating apps. Really, the novel is a social commentary around how people are falling apart in a digital age. And I feel like this was really a case of me looking at this book and saying, it's not you, it's me. I thought the way it explored a lot of these topics was really kind of thought-provoking, and I think if you really kind of delved into analysing it, there probably would be a lot that you would be able to get from it. But ultimately, I found the writing style of it a little bit boring, and I also found the characters quite boring. I really struggled to connect with any of them, and maybe that's, you know, indicative of how we do struggle to connect with one another when so much of our lives are consumed by digital spaces. But ultimately, I really struggled to get into this. I really struggled to want to continue reading it. I really struggled to be motivated to pick it back up when I put it down. I'm sure so many readers would find this really impressive, but I just don't think it was the type of thing I was looking to read right now. I also read The Regret by Amy Bonifins, and what a weird book this is. Now, what I didn't realize about this book before going into it was that it is told from multiple perspectives. Going into this book, I thought it was going to be solely from the perspective of the character Rachel. And Rachel sees a guy at this bus stop and is really drawn to him. She finally musters the courage to go and speak to him, and they begin a relationship. But it turns out this guy is actually dead and is basically a ghost. So I thought the whole thing was going to be from her perspective, but actually we begin from his perspective. So the person that has died, we begin with his perspective. And I really didn't like him. So I think immediately I got off on the wrong foot with this book because of that. As the novel progressed and you get to see different perspectives, I began to enjoy it a lot more. Like, I began to enjoy it a lot more when I wasn't just solely with that character. And I think it's kind of hard to say what this book is about beyond that kind of setup. It's a book about falling in love and why we fall in love and falling in love with the wrong people. It's a book that explores mortality. And without wanting to sound like I'm making a pun or a cliche, it's quite a haunting book. Like, at times it feels quite uncomfortable. In many ways it is a rom-com, but one that is far more philosophical than I've ever read before. There are moments in it that are really humorous. There are moments in it that are really, really sad. There's a slightly enchanting quality about the storytelling in this book that I can't quite articulate why it's like that. I can't quite put my finger on what about it makes it feel that way. It's a book about infatuation, which is something that I always find really interesting. And I suppose it's a book about how people use other people and how other people can be a source of escape or refuge. It's a really imaginative book, and I can't really tell you if I liked it or not, but I was kind of fascinated by it. So I also read this poetry anthology. So this is Becoming. So this is from the Poetry Prescription series, and the poems in this were chosen by Deborah Alma. So the thinking behind this series is that each book in the series collects a series of poems that could be your tonics or cures for whatever you're particularly feeling at that time. And this one is about kind of identity and confidence and authenticity. And there are quite a lot of underlying themes of celebrating queer identity in this as well. Or at least, you know, I felt like exploring those themes led me to resonate in that kind of way. There were some poems in here that I had read before, some that were new to me, and overall I just found it a really enjoyable reading experience. I would definitely be keen to read more books in this series, and it really is the perfect thing if you just kind of want a quick shot of poetry that are connected on a certain theme that you might be, you know, kind of feeling a lot of things around at the minute. Okay, so now into some books for younger readers. I read a young adult book, and that was Red Flags by Sophie Jo. So this is about the relationship between Poppy and Cam, who are both very reluctant in romance. Cam is a boy that always gets the ick. He never dates someone for more than a month, and he always does a bit of a disappearing act. Whereas Poppy has incredibly high standards. She has a list of requirements that someone that she's going to date must fulfill. Boys never end up living up to expectations, and once she sees a single red flag, she is out. Poppy is challenged by her friends to give a relationship a go, and she decides that Cam could be the best option available. Meanwhile, Cam has been challenged by his friends to not call things off with the next girl he dates. He's banned from finishing it. So what Cam decides to do is basically try and be the worst boyfriend he can and try everything he can to put Poppy off. So we find ourselves in this situation where Cam is really pretending to be someone he's not, despite the fact that we can see that him and Poppy are actually a really good match for each other, but he's just pretending to be someone that he's not. And I did find that an interesting and fun dynamic to watch unfold. I found the conversations between the two characters believable. Like, I could see how they are drawn to each other even when there is this kind of masquerade that they're both undertaking. I thought this was fun when I was reading it. It's probably not one that I'm going to keep on my shelves, but I do like that it was something different in the YA romance space. I also read Greenwild, The World Behind the Door by Parry Thompson. So this is a magical middle grade that has been really highly recommended to me, and I was always like, oh, I will get around to it. And it's just the most wonderful feeling when you finally make it to a book that you were really looking forward to reading and it just completely fulfills and exceeds your expectations. So this is about Daisy Thistledown. Her mother is this like investigative journalist that goes to lots of places around the globe, often quite dangerous places, and while Daisy's been growing up, her mother has been bringing her on her research trips. But one day there is a trip that Daisy's mother will not take her on. So she is sent to a boarding school, which she is very frustrated by, but she knows she's not going to be there for long. She's waiting for her mother to come back, and she's waiting, and then it turns out that her mother has actually gone missing on this trip. So Daisy escapes from boarding school, and the adventure that she finds herself going on is beyond what she could have ever imagined. This book has so much to do with nature and botanicals. It's so focused on the natural world and plants, and I found that kind of magical system just really refreshing and unlike anything that I had read before. I thought Daisy was a character you really rooted for. I really enjoyed her mother as a character too. There is some middle grade that you read that is about magic, and there is some middle grade that you read that is truly magical, and that's how I felt about reading this one. I was so drawn in by every page, by every character. I'm really looking forward to reading the sequel. I think this was actually one of the most lovely reading experiences that I've had all year. Okay, now on to the books that I read for work, and I read Skandar and the Spirit War by A.F. Stedman. So this is the 5th book in the Skandar series and the epic conclusion to the story of Skandar and the fellow members of his quartet. It's really hard to talk about this book if you haven't read the previous books in the series, but what I will say is this is an incredibly exciting and satisfying end to the series. I was really satisfied by all of the resolutions to all of the plot points, and also where our favorite characters end up in their own individual stories. I thought the quality of writing throughout this series has been incredible, but I think book 5 takes it to a completely different level, and there is so much kind of contemporary cultural relevance to a lot of what is in this book, and I think so many of the lessons that are in this book are really, really important for kids growing up. Whenever I read a Skandar book, I don't feel like I'm doing reading for work. It is just a complete joy, and it is a privilege to be able to read these books early. There is so much in this series that means so much to me, and I felt like I really had to ration myself when I was reading it because I didn't want it to be over. Also for work, I read Finn's Epic Fails by Phil Earle. So this comes out in January, and it is very funny illustrated fiction about Finn N.O. Hope, who just wants to survive year 7, but there are so many embarrassing fails that happen to him. I think this is really relatable for that kind of year 6, year 7 readership, whether that's embarrassing parents or annoying siblings or trying to fit in with the other kids at school. It's really relatable, really, really funny. Like, I was genuinely kind of laughing along to myself while I was reading this on the tube. And I think no matter what age you are, you will relate to some of the fails that are in this. And I also read The Unfamous Diaries of Daisy Brewster, The Frenemies by Jenny Valentine. So this is the diary entries of our main character, Daisy Brewster, who really wants to be an actor. But when her famous tween star cousin comes to stay with her, she is feeling really frustrated about the kind of attention that her cousin gets because she is, you know, a well-known actor and influencer at a really young age. And again, I think this is another one that will be really relatable for kids at this age in their life where they're maybe comparing themselves to other people. They're trying to figure out what their own dreams and aspirations are. but also trying to, navigate the everyday of family relationships, of school life. And it's another one that is really highly illustrated as well because it's in diary format. So that is it. They are all of the books that I read in August. Do let me know if you read any of them and what you thought of them. If you would like to let me know you're here but you don't have anything in particular to say, please could you leave me some sort of plant emoji in honor of Greenwald, the world behind the door. That is it for me today. I hope you're doing well and I'll speak to you in my next video.